journey along the Seine River through the Loire Valley and around Paris. I begin with this beautiful chateau because it reminds me so much of France and the history that one experiences while traveling in France. I'm not going to talk about this chateau right now, but trust me, I will come back to it, and you'll see this slide again a little bit later in the program, and I'll give you some history about it then. My husband and I flew from Savannah to Paris to begin our amazing 13 days in France, and this was in 2018. Here you can see our itinerary, which sets the stage for our pictorial journey of France. The first 7 days of our journey was a Seine River cruise with the Kansas State Alumni Association. Following the cruise, we were on our own for the remaining 5 days before returning home. The first port on the Seine River was the town of Les Andelys, nestled along the bank of the Seine River amid the chalky cliffs of Normandy. And you can see our ship. Oh, let me turn on my laser pointer. You can see our ship right down here docked along the Seine River. And this photo is taken from Chateau Guillard, which you will see in a moment. Les Andelys is really two towns, Le Petit Andely and Le Grand Andely. This beautiful church in the photo is in Le Petit Andely and was built between 1198 and 1202. The left photo shows one of the very heavy solid wood doors into the church. The center one is the interior of the church, and then the right photo shows the pipes of the organ from 1674, which is said to be one of France's most beautiful organs. One of the highlights of visiting Le Petit Andely is to see Chateau Guillard. The photo here was taken from the grassy lawn adjacent to where our ship docked. So we took a bus to the top of the hill to view Chateau Guillard up here. However, we walked back to our ship. So it really is not all that far. Chateau Guillard was begun in 1196 by Richard I of England, the feudal Duke of Normandy, also known as Richard the Lionheart. He received this nickname due to his bravery during the Crusades. We were able to walk around the grounds and look inside the chateau while we were up on this level. And then this photo shows our group returning to the quaint town of Le Petit Andely from Chateau Guillard. It was an easy and enjoyable 7 to 10 minute downhill walk back to our ship. Now we're at our second port, Le Havre. Our tour from Le Havre took us to the American Cemetery at Omaha Beach. To get there, we traveled over the Normandy Bridge, a cable-stayed bridge that crosses the Seine River estuary. This very impressive bridge was completed in 1995, is 1 1/3 miles across, is 2,808 feet from pier to pier, and is 705 feet high. The American Cemetery at Omaha Beach is in the town of Calville-sur-Mer. There are 9,385 military personnel buried in the cemetery. And this area is not more than 100 to 150 yards from the English Channel. So not only did we visit the cemetery while we were here, but we also walked out to the English Channel to have some beautiful views from there. Also at the American Cemetery, one finds this monument that you see in the left photo. It has the names of 1,557 missing persons inscribed on it. The statue inside the monument, this statue right here, is named Spirit of American Youth Rising from the Waves. And this is the chapel that they have right there in the American Cemetery. It's a small but beautiful little chapel. One of the displays in the monument that was in the previous photo at the American Cemetery was this map. And just a little history lesson on the June 6, 1944. There were 5 points of invasion along France's coastline, beginning with Utah Beach on the left, extending all the way over to Sword Beach, which is actually not shown in my photo. It's just a little to the right of Juno Beach right there. Soldiers from different countries were involved with the invasion. So you can see the names of the beaches on the arrows, and the arrows are different colors because the soldiers were from different countries. So Utah and Omaha beaches, the invasion there was by American troops. At Gold Beach, the soldiers were from Great Britain. At Juno Beach, they were Canadian soldiers, and Sword Beach over to the right was a combination of British and French soldiers. After leaving the American Cemetery, we traveled a short distance from Colville-sur-Mer to the beautiful little town of Saint-Laurent-sur-Mer, which you see in the center photo. So here's the seawall, and the English Channel is out here. It's low tide when I took this photo, so you really don't even see the water, but it is there, and it was a cute little town. The upper left photo is a memorial on the beach at Saint-Laurent-sur-Mer entitled The Braves. It was dedicated in June 2004 for the 60th anniversary of the invasion. On the same beach in the right photo, you see pieces of the artificial harbor which were put in place on June 6, 1944 to assist the troops in gaining access to the shoreline. The water is very shallow here, preventing the ships from coming close to the shore, so the artificial harbors help them unload their equipment and move it ashore. If you look out into the water right out here, these are pieces of this artificial harbor that have not yet loosened and floated ashore. So this harbor extended out even farther than it shows right there in 1944. At our third port, we visited the town of Honfleur. This town was first noted by Richard III, Duke of Normandy, in 1027, and has been especially important for shipping and the Impressionist period of art, as it has been the subject of many Impressionist paintings. And you've seen some small section of these beautiful buildings or the sailboats in many paintings, I'm sure. And the town was just very beautiful. This is a walkway leading from the street to a home in Honfleur, and it was just so picturesque to look at. Now, this bench was in a courtyard into which our guide took us while we were on our walking tour of Honfleur. And it's really unique and very fitting for a town where Impressionist paintings were noted, because if you look at this bench, you can see several different figures, and I'll point out a couple of them. One is a person lying on his side with his knees right here and his feet here. Another is a pig right here. There's the snout and the eye right there. I suppose you could say this is a peacock with the tails spread, or the feathers spread. And then the most recent one that I saw was the snake head right over here. And I didn't even see that until I was preparing this presentation a week or so ago. So it's an interesting bench. This photo is St. Catherine's Church in Honfleur. It's the largest timber-built church in France with a separate bell tower, which you see over here. In France, many bell towers were built separately from the churches because the churches were built of wood and the bell was used to warn people of fires. And so they were afraid that if the church was on fire, they wouldn't be able to get to the bell to warn people of the fire. So that's why they built a lot of the bell towers separately. Another characteristic of churches at this time were that the ceilings appeared to be the hull of a ship, or in this case, a double hull. One hull being here, and then the other one being over on the left side. The reason for that was that typically shipbuilders were used to build the churches. They knew how to build ships, so when looking at many of the churches of this era, the ceilings appear to be overturned ships. The Calvados Christian Drouin Company is in the department of Calvados in northwest Normandy, not far from Honfleur. This company is known for its cider and Calvados. Calvados is an apple brandy unique to this area of France. The apples have to be grown in this region, and the apple brandy has to be made in this region for it to be called Calvados. And then the manor house that you see in these photos was built in the 17th century. These were some other scenes from Calvados Christian Drouin. The apple trees here were in their orchard, and then this is one of the pieces of equipment that they used to make the Calvados. And here is some Calvados that has been bottled and is ready to ship. There were so many things to see along the Seine River. The left photo over here was taken near Le Havre, the northernmost point of the Seine River before it empties into the English Channel. The area was very industrial, and it's a little hard to see, but right there, you can see that they've got cranes just like at the port in Savannah for unloading ships. And then the right photo shows one of several drawbridges along the Seine River. Our next port was Rouen. This is a beautiful town with a long history. The cathedral at Rouen, which you see in the left photo, was built from 1200 to the early 16th century and has sections built in different styles of Gothic architecture. The cathedral tower is the tallest in France at 495 feet, and the front of the cathedral is the largest of any church at 530 feet across. And there were some buildings behind me, so it was difficult to get back far enough to get the whole cathedral in the picture. The right photo shows the spire of the cathedral, which was being renovated. So some of what you see, this part is scaffolding. But I just thought that was kind of interesting to see the spire of the cathedral through that other building. I'm not sure what it was. The interior of the Rouen Cathedral was just as grand as the exterior. So I'm looking in two different directions on this photo, or on these two photos. The first night of our cruise, the captain said we would be making a short stop at Rouen, and if we wished, we could disembark the ship and walk to the cathedral for the 11 p.m. light show. Dale and I considered not going because we were tired from our overnight flight to Paris the previous day, and there was a rather steep bank that we had to walk up to get to the top of the hill where the cathedral was located. However, we decided to go. The show was spectacular and definitely not to be missed. The light show depicted different points in the history of Rouen on the front of the cathedral. It lasted for about 25 minutes, and the light display changed numerous times during the show, probably every minute or every 1 to 2 minutes, they changed the light display on the cathedral. And so here in the left photo, you see another one of the light displays on the Rouen Cathedral. And the right photo shows 2 stained glass windows in the Rouen Cathedral. In 1939, stained glass was removed from churches and historic buildings in Rouen and stored in safe locations until the war was over. Today, stained glass in various windows or various buildings in Rouen dates from 1210. So they have some very old stained glass in Rouen, all because they removed it and stored it during the war. Rouen's historical charm is incredible. The movement for the great clock that you see here was built in 1389. And I have taken, I've cropped this picture and made it into this one so that you could see this area between the 5 and the 7. Every day, every 24 hours, the picture in this location of the clock changes. And in 1529, the facade that you see today was added to the clock, and it was moved and mounted on the Renaissance Arch where it is today. So this is the Renaissance Arch in Rouen, and the clock is mounted there. This is the Joan of Arc Church in Rouen. The design, both the inside and outside of the church, reminds us of Joan's burning at the stake and also the Viking longships. The ceiling in the right photo here is under this area of the church right here. And inside the church was just beautiful. It was very modern, but it was very appealing to look at and brightly colored. And this photo, these stained glass windows are also in the Joan of Arc Church. But stained glass in buildings in Rouen is not always in its original location. The stained glass windows seen here were originally installed in Rouen's Church of St. Vincent. However, that church was destroyed during the war. Fortunately, the beautiful 16th century stained glass windows had been removed and stored. And so when the Joan of Arc Church was being designed and built in 1979, part of the design was to include the 16th century stained glass windows originally from the Cathedral of St. Vincent. So these, while this is a new church built in 1979, these stained glass windows are from the 16th century. Outside the Joan of Arc Church, one finds this cross commemorating the spot in Rouen where Joan of Arc was burned at the stake in 1431. And these are just some other pictures from around Rouen. This photo right here is what they called their narrowest street. It looked more like a sidewalk because it really wasn't much wider than that, but it was a street and it had this nice little covering over it. And so it was really cute. This is one of their historical buildings and a couple of the gargoyles that deposit the rain away from the building. And then this is Rouen's Leaning House. It has been sold in the past 5 years. It had been sold maybe 2 years or so before we were there in 2018, and it sold for over $1 million. French chocolate is wonderful. So we were excited to see that a visit to this chocolate shop was included on our walking tour of Rouen. This gentleman is making the basket that you see in the center photo. He began by pouring melted chocolate over bubble wrap and then spreading it out in a circle as he's doing here. And then he put it into this fluted pan and pressed it down so that it would have the shape of the pan and let it cool. Once the chocolate was cool, he removed it from the pan, removed the bubble wrap, and he had this beautiful little chocolate basket that he filled with other chocolate candies. From the port of Vernon, we visited Monet's home in Giverny. Monet's bedroom is the closest window, this one right up here, And every day he could look out and see this garden because I took this photo right here from this window up here. So he had this beautiful garden and flowers right outside his bedroom window. And this is another of Monet's gardens that was on the grounds right there. And it has the Japanese bridge right back here, willow trees on this side, the water lilies, and beautiful flowers that he included in many of his paintings. And these are some of the flowers in Monet's garden. Conflans-Sainte-Honorine was our last port of call prior to returning to Paris and disembarking. The skyline of Conflans-Sainte-Honorine is seen in this photo, taken from our ship as we were waiting to disembark for our excursion to Chateau de Malmaison. Chateau de Malmaison was the home of Napoleon and Josephine Bonaparte. Josephine bought this chateau in 1799 while Napoleon was away. It was quite run down, but over time she restored it into a beautiful home for them. It was most recently restored by French architect Pierre Humbert in the early 20th century, and today is an important historical monument. These are portraits of Napoleon and Josephine hanging in the Chateau de Malmaison. And this is the library in Chateau de Malmaison. This is a unique chair in one of the rooms of the chateau. And this is one of the, this is a bedroom in the Chateau de Malmaison. This, we're back on the ship now, sailing toward Paris, and this was a home along the river, and I just thought it was so beautiful with all the trees and the mountain in the background. Here's another beautiful home along the Seine River. And then this was a fortress along the river. I'm sorry I don't know the name of this fortress, but it was near Paris. After returning to Paris, we were on our own for 5 days. So during those 5 days, we used 2 of the days to take tours outside of Paris, one to Versailles and one to the Loire Valley. Versailles Palace is actually just a short distance from Paris. It's a suburb of Paris, but there's so many people that going there to visit really takes the whole day. It was begun in 1624 as a hunting lodge by Louis XIII, but was expanded over the years. It was the center of France's political power from 1682 until October 1789, when the French Revolution began. Today, it is still used for some political functions. So what you see in the photo is the gate into the palace. Here you see some of the detail of the exterior of Versailles. The palace has 2,400 rooms, so this is just a tiny area of the exterior. The chapel here is inside Versailles Palace. The organ is in the front that you can see, and then seating would be on the 2 sides because this is on the 2nd level and it's open down to the 1st level all the way to the ceiling up here. And then we weren't allowed to go into the chapel, so we just had to take the picture through the doors. But look at the beautiful doors into the chapel. And this is a beautiful painted ceiling in Versailles Palace. Versailles is visited by 10 million people per year, so taking photos of anything lower than 6 feet is a challenge because there are so many people. It's not that you can't see the things that are low, because you can. You just have to work with the people that are in the room with you and kind of get up to them. But then once you get up to them, you've got hands or arms or something in the way. So trying to take photos of the lower things in the palace is really tough. But you know, there's still plenty of things that you can take pictures of that are high, because you know the ceiling and the rooms are just gorgeous. There's so much to look at, and everything is spectacular and massive at Versailles. Here you see Latona's fountain, the Great Lawn, and the Grand Canal. So this is the fountain, the Great Lawn is this area, and the Grand Canal is back here. I have the Versailles Palace behind me when I'm taking this photo. So from Versailles Palace out to the end of the Grand Canal is probably a half a mile walking. It's just massive. And when you're walking around, there's so many areas to see. It looks like, you know, it's just this area here, but in reality, there are gardens off of that you can explore. There are gardens on this side that you can explore. And in every direction, there are more gardens that can be explored. Here you see the Neptune pool and statue. Some of the fountains were turned on for a short time during our visit, and they were beautiful. We were given information before we got off of our bus, telling us which fountains would be running that day and what times they would be running the fountain. So you could plan your visit in the gardens so that you were at the different fountains when they would be running if you wanted to get photos of that. And I did have some photos, but actually the fountains minus the water flowing were actually better pictures. So I didn't put any of them in. In this photo, this walkway leads up to Versailles Palace. So you're seeing the back of Versailles Palace, or you're seeing the side of Versailles Palace in this photo. And here's Chateau de Chambord, the photo that I had at the beginning. So our second excursion took us outside of Paris to the Loire Valley. This was a 12-hour trip that highlighted 2 chateaux. And in spite of the long day, it was well worth it. One of the chateaux we visited was Chateau de Chambord. It was built in the French Renaissance style by King Francis I between 1519 and 1547, but was never completed. This is the largest chateau in the Loire Valley with 440 rooms. It is surrounded by 13,000 wooded acres and a 19-mile wall. The roof has 11 styles of towers and 3 styles of chimneys with no symmetry. It was designed to appear as the skyline of Constantinople. Here's a closer view of one of the towers at Chateau de Chambord. They let us go up to an area that was kind of a roof garden, but you were only up as high as where the towers begin. So that's how I could get a closer up view of this tower. Inside the chateau, the double spiral staircase and animal designs carved into the ceiling added to the incredible views. We asked about the purpose of the double spiral staircase and were told it may have been to keep the king's wife and his mistress from seeing one another since they both lived in the chateau. I don't know if there was truth to that or not, but that's what we were told. And this is one of the beautiful gardens at Chambord. The other chateau that we were able to visit in the Loire Valley is Chenonceau. The Chateau de Chenonceau was known as the Ladies' Castle and is built over the Cher River. It was built between 1514 and 1522 in the Renaissance style. While most of the chateau in the Loire Valley were hunting lodges and designed with the king in mind, This one was designed more by the women who lived in the chateau. It was expanded several times in the 16th century. The keep in the front, right here, was from an earlier castle on this location, so the architectural style appears slightly different. This is inside Chateau de Chenonceau. You see this beautiful fireplace, and these are some of the ceiling tiles, which have the insignia of several kings who owned and lived in the chateau. So here's an A, an F, an H, and I'm not sure what the initials are here. I see a D and a C, but there might be one other initial there too, so I'm not sure which king that was. The left photo shows the moat leading back to the Cher River, which is here, and the Cher River runs under the Chateau de Chenonceau. In this right photo, the kayaker is in the Cher River about to pass under the chateau. And this is one of the beautiful gardens at Chateau de Chenonceau. Everything is perfectly manicured. This is the second most visited chateau in France after Versailles, with over 800,000 visitors per year. For the remaining 2 days of our trip to France, we used the hop-on, hop-off bus to get around Paris. Here you see the Louvre, which has had an interesting evolution. It began as a fortress in 1190, was transformed to a palace and royal residence by 1380, and became a museum in 1793. Most recently, this pavilion in the front, well, this really isn't the front, it's kind of the center, because the Louvre goes, it is shaped like a U, and so there's more of the Louvre on the left side of my photo over here that you don't see. But this area right here was designed by I.M. Pei and built between 1984 and 1989. It's constructed entirely of glass segments and metal poles, as you can see in the right photo. As you can imagine, because its design is so contemporary, it caused much controversy when being constructed, but it really works well as the entrance to the Louvre. And you can see people here lined up waiting to get into the Louvre. Everything in the Louvre is amazing, including the royal furniture and the walls and ceilings of the exhibit rooms. This room contains the largest ceiling ever painted by Delacroix, who lived from 1798 to 1863. The painting is called Apollo Victorious over Python. And it's this whole ceiling area that you see. These photos show other beautiful things we saw in the Louvre, including the rooms themselves, jewelry, and historic artifacts. In this right photo, the reason I included that is because if you look over the door, which I will help you do, right here, you can see 1559, indicating that that is the year in which this section of the Louvre was built. Pont Neuf, the oldest bridge across the Seine River, links Ile de la Cité with the rest of Paris. Ile de la Cité is where medieval Paris began. Well-known buildings found on Ile de la Cité include the Palace of Justice, Sainte-Chapelle, and Notre Dame. And the judicial branch of the French government has their offices in the Palace of Justice, which you see here, this lower part. And then this part right back here is Sainte-Chapelle, and it's a beautiful church that you'll see in the next photo. Sainte-Chapelle was begun in 1238 by King Louis IX and was completed in 1248. Today, it has one of the most extensive 13th century stained glass collections in the world. To take these photos, I was standing near the center of the nave. One photo was one direction, and I turned around 180 degrees to take the other photo. Notre Dame Cathedral, seen here, is one of the finest examples of Gothic architecture in the world. Construction of the cathedral began in 1163 under the reign of King Louis VII and ended in 1345. Sadly, Notre Dame Cathedral caught fire since we visited in 2018 and is now undergoing major renovation. I believe the heaviest damage from the fire was this back part of the cathedral. The central doors of Notre Dame Cathedral portray the story of the Last Judgment and include Jesus, the 12 apostles, and people from every class of French society. The 17th century organ that you see the pipes for here were still in use when we visited Notre Dame Cathedral. This very narrow street, Rue Galande, with its crooked houses, and it's a little hard to tell that they're crooked here, but you see that they don't stand up very straight. This is the oldest part of Paris, and in the 13th century, this road led to both Lyon and Rome. On the right, you can see one of the newer churches in Paris, Sacré-Cœur Basilica in Montmartre. It was built on the highest hill of Paris between 1875 and 1914 and was constructed with travertine stone quarried in France. These three cafes on opposite sides of Boulevard Saint-Germain have been the home to thinkers who have inspired worldwide movements, including Picasso, Wilde, Hemingway, Sartre, de Beauvoir, Camus, and Morrison. All three cafes were opened in the 1880s. They believe that Hemingway wrote much of A Farewell to Arms and Brasserie Lippe right here, this one. And then across the intersection from those three cafes is Saint-Germain-des-Prés Church. It was built between 990 and 1021 AD to replace the abbey that once sat on this site and was destroyed in 885 AD. It has been enlarged over the centuries and was restored both in the 17th and 19th century. So this is how it looks today. How beautiful it is. Palais Garnier, or the Paris Opera House, was built from 1861 to 1865 in the Napoleon III style. A characteristic of this style was to leave no space undecorated. Today, Palais Garnier is primarily used for ballet performances. Oops, sorry. One couldn't visit Paris without exploring the Champs-Élysées and the Grand Arc de Triomphe, which you see in this photo. The Eiffel Tower is possibly the most easily recognized symbol of Paris. The Eiffel Tower was built for the 1889 World's Fair. It's 1,063 feet tall and 410 feet on each side. It's visited annually by over 6 million visitors. On the last night of our Seine River cruise, our ship returned to Paris and we were positioned to watch the lighting of the Eiffel Tower after dark, the right photo. In front of the Eiffel Tower, one sees the quarter-size replica of the Statue of Liberty, which was given to France by the American community in Paris to commemorate the centennial anniversary of the beginning of the French Revolution. And I just want to spend a few more minutes discussing the holiday season in France, since this is our December program. The information I found on the Christmas holiday, the information I found focused on the Christmas holiday, and I have included a citation with the source of each of the photos that I've used since the photos are copyrighted. By the end of November, cities in France are transformed into magical wonderlands with Christmas lights. The large department stores like Galeries Lafayette and Printemps decorate their windows with beautiful displays, as you see here. This photo was from Quentin Haussmann in 2016. Holiday decorations are an important part of the French holiday celebration. This is a photo of Notre Dame in Paris taken several years ago. The tree in front was a gift from Russia. Palace Stanislas in the town of Nancy is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Every December, the courtyard is beautifully decorated, this area in the center here. Advent calendars and Advent wreaths have long been important parts of the French culture. Children look forward to Christmas and the Advent calendars because the modern ones contain toys and chocolates. This photo shows one of the largest Advent wreaths in France, hanging in the nave of the cathedral in Strasbourg. Many traditions in France are similar to those in the US. St. Nicholas was an important part of the tradition in Alsace, Flanders, and Lorraine regions of France, as well as Germany, Austria, and Belgium. When the Dutch immigrated to the US in the 19th century, they brought this tradition with them, and the character of St. Nicholas evolved into Santa Claus. Today, Santa Claus is popular in France and is called Père Noël, or Father Christmas, and delivers presents to the French children at midnight on December 24th, just as in the US. Many families also open presents on December 24th, sometimes after the midnight mass or after the Réveillon dinner, a multi-course meal spread over as much as 6 hours and including special foods only prepared during the holiday season. Much care is taken with creating decorations for the holiday table, as the table must look elegant and inviting. The food served at the Réveillon dinner varies from region to region. However, one very interesting tradition is in Provence region, where they like to eat 13 desserts. I was shocked as I read this, but more, I learned that this includes a Yule log, the traditional French dessert, along with a variety of fruits like oranges, apples, melons, dried figs, and dates, as well as nuts such as almonds and hazelnuts. So each different nut or fruit counts as one of the 13 desserts. Christmas carols are important in France, and each region typically has some of their own carols. Some American holiday carols, such as Silent Night, Jingle Bells, and Little Drummer Boy, have been adapted into French, just as there are some French carols that are sung in the US. This photo shows the entrance to the Strasbourg Christmas market. Christmas markets continue to be an important part of the French holiday tradition. Strasbourg, a historic city on the Rhine River, hosts the largest and oldest Christmas market, which began in 1570. Due to the proximity of the Alsace region of France to Germany, many of the markets still appear like small mountain chalets covered in lights and decorations. And you can see one of the markets back here that's kind of like a mountain chalet. So those are all of my slides, and here's the information. The information that I shared with you from the last 9 slides was gathered from the website, The Guide to All the French Traditions of Christmas, French Moments, and I have the link there. And also these below that are the URLs for 2 YouTube videos showing a number of light displays in the Paris area that you might want to watch. So those are all my slides, and I will stop my share, and if you have questions, I will be happy to answer them, and if not, we can move on to wrapping up the meeting.